I told my family to stop helping my ungrateful daughter who refused to follow our house rules after she came back from Europe, where she blew through $30,000 of her grandmother's inheritance in 3 months, and still had the audacity to call me controlling for asking her to wash her own dishes. The words hit the Thanksgiving table like a grenade. 23 faces froze mid-chew. My daughter Vanessa's fork clattered against her plate, cranberry sauce splashing onto my mother's white linen tablecloth. The silence stretched so thick I could hear my sister-in-law's shallow breathing 3 seats down. Vanessa's face twisted into that familiar sneer, the one she'd perfected somewhere between Paris and Barcelona. "You're doing this here? In front of everyone?" She pushed back from the table, her chair scraping against my hardwood floors. "This is exactly why I can't live with you anymore, Mom. You're suffocating me with your middle-class rules and your pathetic need for control." She turned to face our family, her voice dripping with practiced victimhood. "Do you know what she did? She gave me a chore chart, like I'm 12, all because I don't jump every time she needs her precious kitchen cleaned." My brother David immediately reached for his wallet. My sister Michelle was already opening her mouth to offer Vanessa their guest room. This was the pattern. Vanessa threw tantrums, painted me as the villain, and my family rushed to rescue her from the terrible burden of basic responsibility. But this time, I didn't flinch. I lifted my wine glass, took a slow sip, and smiled. "Tell them about the inheritance, sweetheart. Tell them exactly how you spent Grandma Dorothy's money." Vanessa's face drained of color. Good. She thought I didn't know the details. She thought I'd bought her stories about experiences and finding herself. She had no idea what I'd discovered 3 weeks ago when I helped my mother sort through her financial documents. She had no idea that I'd been making phone calls, collecting receipts, taking screenshots. She had no idea that the daughter she dismissed as controlling had documented every lie she'd told for the past 4 months. I was Vanessa's mother, the woman who'd raised her alone after her father walked out when she was 6. I'd worked double shifts as a paralegal to pay for her college. I'd gone without vacations, driven a car held together with hope and duct tape, and turned down a promotion that would have required relocation because I didn't want to disrupt her senior year of high school. When my mother, her grandmother Dorothy, passed away last spring and left Vanessa $30,000 with the specific instruction that it be used for building her future, I'd been genuinely happy. Finally, my daughter would have the cushion I never had. Then she'd spent it in 92 days. Not on a degree, not on a business, not even on an apartment deposit, on nightclubs in Ibiza, designer clothes in Milan, first-class train tickets because economy was depressing. And when she came home broke, entitled and somehow more insufferable than when she'd left, she'd expected me to house her, feed her, and ask nothing in return. When I'd suggested she contribute by doing her own laundry and washing her dishes, she'd called me toxic. My family didn't know any of this. They saw Vanessa's Instagram posts of the Eiffel Tower and the Italian countryside. They heard her artfully crafted stories about personal growth and cultural education. They didn't know about the $3,000 bottle service tabs or the luxury hotel rooms she'd paid for to impress people whose last names she never learned. But they were about to. I set down my wine glass and pulled out my phone. "I made a presentation," I said calmly. "Since we're all together, I thought it might be a good time to share exactly where Grandma Dorothy's money went. I have screenshots of Vanessa's Venmo, credit card statements from accounts I co-signed when she was 19, and some particularly interesting receipts she left in the jacket she asked me to dry clean last week." The blood rushed from Vanessa's face. Around the table, forks hung suspended in midair. My mother leaned forward, her eyes sharp despite her 78 years. "Mom," Vanessa's voice cracked. "You went through my stuff? You mean the stuff you left in my house while expecting me to pay for its cleaning?" I connected my phone to the TV in the dining room. "Let's start with August 15th. That's the day after Grandma's estate money hit your account. Can anyone guess what Vanessa's first purchase was?" My sister Michelle touched Vanessa's arm protectively. "Margaret, maybe this isn't $4,700 at Balenciaga in Paris." The receipt filled the screen, timestamp and all. "For 3 pairs of shoes and a handbag." I clicked to the next image. August 17th, $2,100. Dinner for 8 people at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Lyon. Vanessa picked up the whole tab to impress people she'd met at a hostel that morning. Click. August 23rd, $5,300. VIP table at a club in Barcelona, including a $1,500 tip because, according to her Instagram story that night, she wanted to seem sophisticated. I watched my brother David slowly close his wallet. My cousin Jennifer, who'd been halfway to offering her apartment, sat back in her chair. "September 4th, I continued, my voice steady. Private yacht day trip in Santorini, $3,200. She went alone because, and I quote from her message to her friend Taylor, "I need content that makes me look like I have my life together." Vanessa's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. The confidence she'd wielded like a weapon 5 minutes ago had evaporated. She looked young suddenly, and small, and caught, but I wasn't done. By October 9th, the money was gone. All $30,000. And do you know what she bought with the last $400 in that account? I pulled up the final receipt. A first-class train ticket from Rome back to Paris to catch her flight home, because even with her grandmother's inheritance completely depleted, the idea of sitting in economy was beneath her. My mother's hands were shaking. My brother wouldn't meet Vanessa's eyes. The cousins who'd been ready to offer couches and spare rooms suddenly found their plates fascinating. "She came home broke," I said quietly. "Not just broke. In debt. She'd maxed out the credit cards I co-signed for emergencies. Cards I'm legally responsible for. That's $8,000 I now owe because my daughter decided bottle service was more important than her future." I turned off the TV and looked at each person at the table. "So, when I ask her to wash her own dishes, to do her own laundry, to contribute in the smallest way to the household she's living in rent-free, and she calls me controlling? When she tells you all that I'm suffocating her with my expectations? I want you to remember these numbers. I want you to remember that while she was spending her grandmother's money on Instagram moments, I was working 50-hour weeks to keep our house out of foreclosure." The silence that followed wasn't awkward anymore. It was damning. Vanessa stood abruptly, her face blotchy with rage and humiliation. "I can't believe you just did that. You humiliated me in front of everyone. What kind of mother?" "The kind who's done enabling you," I interrupted. "And the kind who's asking the rest of this family to stop enabling you too. No more emergency loans. No more spare rooms. No more rescuing her from consequences she's earned." My daughter grabbed her coat from the back of her chair, tears streaming down her face now, though I couldn't tell if they were from shame or fury. "You're going to regret this," she hissed. "You have no idea what I'm capable of." I smiled then, really smiled, and something in my expression made her step back. "Actually, sweetheart, I know exactly what you're capable of. The question is, do you know what I'm capable of?" She fled the dining room, her dramatic exit punctuated by the slam of my front door. The sound echoed through the house and then silence. My mother spoke first, her voice quiet but firm. "How much of the credit card debt did you say you're responsible for?" $8,317, I replied, plus interest that's been accumulating for 2 months while she told me she was looking for the right job instead of any job. David exhaled slowly. "Jesus, Maggie, why didn't you tell us sooner?" "Because I'd been documenting, because I'd been planning, because I'd learned something important in my 23 years as a paralegal. The person who controls the narrative controls the outcome, and I'd just taken control." What my family didn't know, what Vanessa certainly didn't know, was that the credit card debt was just the beginning. There were other receipts I hadn't shown, other transactions that would matter very soon. When I'd gone through Vanessa's jacket pocket, I hadn't just found shopping receipts. I'd found something much more valuable, but that revelation could wait. First, I needed my family unified. I needed them to stop being Vanessa's safety net. I needed her to understand that actions have consequences, and that her mother was far more strategic than she'd ever given me credit for. I picked up my fork and took a bite of turkey that had gone cold. Around the table, conversation started slowly, carefully. My sister asked about the credit cards. My brother wanted to know about the yacht in Santorini. My mother just watched me with an expression I couldn't quite read, but underneath their questions, I could feel the shift. The family that had been ready to rescue Vanessa 5 minutes ago was now reconsidering everything they thought they knew. They were seeing her clearly for the first time. And more importantly, they were seeing me as something other than the controlling mother she'd painted me to be. My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. "I hope you're proud of yourself. You just destroyed any relationship we had left." I typed back, "We'll see, because the thing about revenge is that it works best when served in courses." This was just the appetizer. The main event was still to come, and Vanessa had no idea she'd already given me everything I needed to serve it. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Vanessa had gone from angry texts to manipulative ones in under an hour. "Mom, I'm sorry. Can we talk?" Followed by, "I'm scared and alone." Followed by, "Fine. I guess you never loved me anyway." I left them all on read. The day after Thanksgiving, my brother David called. "Maggie, I know Vanessa messed up, but she's still your daughter." Michelle and I were thinking. "No," I said flatly. "You didn't let me finish. You were going to offer her money or a place to stay. The answer is no." I asked everyone at that table to stop enabling her, and I meant it. There was a long pause. She called Michelle crying. She says she has nowhere to go. She has friends. She has that network of people she impressed with Grandma's money. Let her call in those favors. I was folding laundry in my bedroom, Vanessa's room across the hall standing empty. She'd taken her things and left sometime during the night, probably to her friend Taylor's apartment. "This seems harsh, Maggie." "You know what's harsh, David? Working yourself to exhaustion for 23 years and having your child throw it back in your face because you asked her to wash a dish." I snapped a towel with more force than necessary. "I'm not being cruel. I'm being consistent. For the first time in her life, Vanessa is experiencing real consequences." After I hung up, I pulled out the file folder I'd been building. Inside were 3 months of documentation, but the real treasure was a crumpled receipt I'd found in that jacket pocket. It showed a cash withdrawal of $5,000 from Grandma Dorothy's inheritance on September 28th. But here's what made it interesting. According to Vanessa's story, the money had run out by October 9th. She told me she'd budgeted carefully those last 2 weeks in Europe. That receipt proved she'd had $5,000 in cash, money that never appeared in any of the bank statements or credit card bills, money that had vanished completely from her paper trail. I'd spent the last 3 weeks figuring out where it went. The answer had required some creative investigation, some calls to old contacts from my paralegal days, and one very informative conversation with Vanessa's friend Taylor, who didn't realize she was giving me exactly what I needed. Vanessa had loaned that $5,000 to her European boyfriend Marco, some Italian musician she'd met in Rome who was about to get his big break and just needed temporary help with studio time. She'd given him cash. He'd promised to pay her back within 2 weeks, and then he'd blocked her on everything the moment she left Italy. She'd been scammed by a man she'd known for 6 days, with her grandmother's money, and she'd never told me because she knew exactly how stupid it made her look. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. "Margaret, I need to talk to you about Dorothy's estate." I drove to her assisted living facility that afternoon. Mom was sitting in her apartment with photo albums spread across her coffee table. Pictures of Vanessa as a child, gap-toothed and innocent. Vanessa at her high school graduation. Vanessa and Grandma Dorothy at her college acceptance celebration. "Your grandmother specifically wanted that money to help Vanessa build something lasting," Mom said quietly. "She made me promise to make sure it was used wisely." "I know. I failed her." Mom's voice cracked. "I should have put restrictions on it. I should have required receipts or milestones, but I thought Vanessa was mature enough." "She fooled us both," I interrupted. "Vanessa is very good at seeming responsible right up until someone hands her something valuable." Mom touched a photo of young Vanessa. "What are you going to do?" "What I should have done a long time ago. Let her fall. Completely. She's been calling me too, asking for money for a deposit on an apartment, and I told her no." Mom looked up at me, her eyes watery but firm. "I told her I'd failed Dorothy once by not protecting that inheritance, and I wouldn't fail her again by rewarding Vanessa's behavior." Something loosened in my chest. "Thank you. But Margaret, there's something you should know." Mom pulled out a manila envelope from beneath the photo albums. "Dorothy didn't just leave Vanessa money. She left instructions in a sealed letter that was supposed to be given to Vanessa with the inheritance." She handed it to me. I was going through my documents and found it. I'd forgotten completely. I was supposed to give this to her on the same day she received the money. I opened the envelope carefully. Inside was a letter in my grandmother's shaky handwriting, dated 2 weeks before she died. "My dearest Vanessa," it began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've just received a gift that took me 40 years to save. This money represents every luxury I denied myself, every vacation I skipped, every new dress I didn't buy. I saved it for you because I believe in your potential. But potential means nothing without character. Use this money to build something real. Get a degree. Start a business. Put down roots. Don't waste it chasing temporary happiness. Prove to me that I was right to believe in you. Prove to your mother, who has sacrificed everything for you, that you understand the value of what you've been given. Make me proud. Make yourself proud. With all my love, Grandma Dorothy." I read it twice. Then I looked at my mother. "You were supposed to give this to her?" I forgot. With the funeral and the estate paperwork, it just slipped through the cracks. Mom's hands twisted together. "If she'd read this first, maybe nothing," I said firmly. "This letter wouldn't have changed what she did. It would have just given her something else to feel guilty about after the fact." I folded it carefully and put it back in the envelope, but it does give me an idea. "Margaret, what are you planning?" I kissed my mother's cheek. "Justice. I'm planning justice." That night, I made a phone call to an old colleague from the law firm where I'd worked as a paralegal. Janet had moved into estate law, specifically handling cases where inheritance was misused or contested. We'd stayed friends over the years, meeting for coffee every few months. Hypothetically, I said, if someone received an inheritance with specific instructions on how it should be used, and they violated those instructions, is there legal recourse? Depends, Janet replied. If the will had explicit conditions attached, possibly. If it was just a letter of intent, probably not. Why? I explained the situation. The $30,000. The verbal instructions from Dorothy that it be used to build her future. The letter that was supposed to accompany the inheritance, but didn't. The letter doesn't matter legally if it wasn't part of the will, Janet said. But here's the interesting part. You said you co-signed on credit cards she maxed out? $8,000 worth. And she's 25, correct? An adult who made financial decisions that you're now responsible for? Yes. You could sue her. Small claims court for anything under $10,000. Force her to pay you back for the debt she created that you're legally liable for. I was quiet for a moment. Would I win? If you have documentation? Almost certainly. You co-signed in good faith for emergencies. She used them for luxury spending in Europe. Any judge would see that as misuse. Janet paused. But Maggie, is this really about the money? No, I admitted. It's about making sure she finally understands that her actions have consequences. Real ones. Then do it. File the paperwork. Even if you don't follow through with the full lawsuit, sometimes just receiving court documents is enough to wake someone up. After we hung up, I sat in my quiet house and thought about the girl Vanessa used to be. The one who'd bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers. The one who'd cried when her goldfish died and made me hold a full funeral with a shoebox casket. Somewhere along the way, that girl had become someone I barely recognized, someone entitled and cruel and willing to use my love as a weapon against me. I wasn't going to sue her. Not yet. But the threat of it, the reality that I could, that would be useful. Because I learned something important in my years working in law. People don't change because you ask nicely. They change when the alternative is worse than staying the same. My phone buzzed. Vanessa again. Taylor's boyfriend says I have to leave by Monday. I have nowhere to go and no money. Are you really going to let me be homeless? I stared at that message for a long time. The old me, the mother who'd sacrificed everything, would have crumbled. Would have wired money or offered to talk about it, or found some compromise that let Vanessa off the hook while I absorbed the damage. But that mother had died at Thanksgiving dinner. The woman who'd replaced her was smarter, harder, and done being manipulated. I typed back, you have money. You have the $5,000 you gave to Marco in Rome. Get it back from him. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, how do you know about that? I know everything, Vanessa. That's what you keep forgetting. No response. Good. Let her wonder what else I knew. Let her lie awake tonight trying to figure out how much of her carefully constructed facade I'd seen through. Because the truth was, I knew more than she could imagine. I knew about the Instagram accounts she thought were private. I knew about the credit cards she'd opened without telling me. The ones that hadn't required co-signers. I knew about her resume, inflated with jobs she'd held for 3 weeks and degrees she'd never finished. I knew she'd been fired from her last position for showing up late consistently, not laid off due to restructuring like she'd claimed. I knew everything because I'd been paying attention while she assumed I was too old, too tired, too invested in playing the loving mother to see clearly. She'd underestimated me. They always did. The daughter who called me controlling, the family who thought I was being too harsh. They all assumed that because I'd spent 23 years prioritizing Vanessa's needs over my own, I'd continue doing it forever. They were wrong. I opened my laptop and started drafting an email. Not to Vanessa, to Marco Bellini in Rome, whose social media accounts Vanessa had tagged dozens of times before he'd blocked her. The man was easy to find once you knew where to look. He had a public Facebook page promoting his music career, which consisted mainly of cover songs performed in tourist areas. The email was simple. Dear Marco, my name is Margaret Hayes. I'm the mother of Vanessa Hayes, who gave you $5,000 in cash on September 28th. I have documentation of this transaction, including the ATM receipt, time-stamped photos of you together from that day, and messages between you and Vanessa discussing the loan. I'm a paralegal with 23 years of experience in civil litigation. I understand Italian authorities take fraud very seriously, especially when it involves tourists. You have 72 hours to return the $5,000 to Vanessa's account, or I will be filing a report with the Polizia di Stato and pursuing legal action through international civil court. The choice is yours. Regards, Margaret Hayes. I included all my professional credentials, my law firm's old letterhead that I'd kept, and enough legal language to make it sound official and terrifying. Then I hit send. It was a bluff mostly. International civil court for $5,000 would cost more than it was worth, but Marco didn't know that. Marco, who'd built his scam on targeting naive tourists, would see official letterhead and panic. My phone rang. Janet, hey, I've been thinking about your situation. There's something else you should consider. What's that? If Vanessa's been living with you rent-free and you can prove she had means to contribute but refused, you could charge her retroactive rent, especially if you have documentation of your house rules and her refusal to follow them. It's not common, but in cases where adult children exploit their parents financially, courts have sided with the parents. How much are we talking? Depends on market rate for a room in your area, but probably $1,500 to $2,000 a month. If she's been with you for 4 months since returning from Europe, that's $6,000 to $8,000. I did the math silently. $8,000 in credit card debt, potentially $8,000 in retroactive rent, $13,000 total, plus interest. Janet, if I were to pursue this, how would I start? Document everything, house rules you established, dates she violated them, any communication where she refused to contribute or called you names for asking, then file in small claims. The filing fee is minimal, and you represent yourself. After we hung up, I pulled out my phone and scrolled back through months of text messages with Vanessa, dozens of conversations where I'd asked her to contribute, where I'd suggested she get any job, even part-time, just to show effort. Her responses ranged from dismissive to cruel. You're being dramatic. I'm your daughter. Stop acting like I owe you something for doing your job as a parent. I'll help when I find the right opportunity. I'm not going to waste my potential on some minimum wage job just to satisfy your control issues. I screenshot every single one. Then I opened a new document and began itemizing. 4 months of rent at $1,800 per month, $7,200. List of house rules established on day 1 of her return. Documentation of each violation. Text messages proving she understood the expectations and chose to ignore them. By midnight, I had a file that would make any lawyer proud. Organized, comprehensive, devastating. I still wasn't sure I'd use it, but having it, knowing I could, that gave me something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Control over my own life and my own narrative. The next morning, Vanessa showed up at my door. She looked terrible. Unwashed hair, yesterday's makeup smeared, wearing the same clothes from Thanksgiving. Mom, please, can we just talk? There's nothing to talk about. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry about the money and the dishes and all of it. I messed up. But I'm your daughter. You can't just abandon me. I'm not abandoning you. I'm refusing to enable you. There's a difference. Her face twisted. This is about control. This has always been about control. You can't stand that I lived my life the way I wanted instead of following your boring, small-minded path. Vanessa, I've spent 23 years putting your needs first. I worked jobs I hated, lived in a house I couldn't afford, and sacrificed every dream I had so you could have opportunities. And you took those opportunities, and your grandmother's money, and you blew it all on impressing strangers in European nightclubs. So don't talk to me about control. This isn't about control. This is about consequences. What do you want from me? She screamed. You want me to grovel? You want me to admit I'm a failure? Fine. I'm a failure. I messed up. Are you happy now? What I want, I said calmly, is for you to take responsibility, not perform it for sympathy. Actually own it. I am owning it. No, you're having a tantrum in my driveway because I won't rescue you from your own choices. I started to close the door. When you're ready to actually change, we can talk. Until then, figure it out yourself. I got an email from Marco, she blurted out. I stopped. Did you? How did you find him? How did you even know? She was crying now. Real tears. He sent back the money. All of it. He said something about legal action and police reports. What did you do? I made a liar face consequences. Same thing I'm doing with you. That's my money. No, that's Grandma Dorothy's money that you gave to a con artist. And now it's back in your account. Use it to get an apartment and a job. Prove you can function like an adult. I met her eyes. Or blow it again. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. I closed the door on her stunned face and walked back into my quiet house. Through the window, I watched her stand in my driveway for 5 full minutes before finally getting in her car and driving away. My phone buzzed. A notification from the bank account I still had joint access to from when Vanessa was in college. $5,000 had just been deposited. Marco had come through. Good. That was one piece in place. Now I just needed to wait and see what Vanessa would do with this second chance. Something told me I wouldn't have to wait long. Vanessa lasted 6 days. 6 days before the $5,000 Marco returned started disappearing into the same black hole of poor decisions. I watched it happen in real time through the joint bank account I'd never removed myself from. $300 at a luxury salon. $400 at a boutique in the city. $200 on dinner at a restaurant she couldn't afford back when she had $30,000, let alone $5,000. She wasn't learning. She was just performing the appearance of learning long enough to see if I'd crack and let her back into my house. On the 7th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered to hear a nervous male voice. Mrs. Hayes, this is Derek Chen from Pinnacle Property Management. Your daughter Vanessa listed you as a reference for an apartment rental. Did she? Yes, and I have to say, some of the information on her application is concerning. She listed her current employment as marketing consultant, with an income of $75,000 annually. But when I called the company she listed, they said she'd been let go 8 months ago. I wasn't surprised. What else did she lie about? There was a pause. You're saying she did lie? Mr. Chen, I'm going to save us both time. Vanessa is 25 years old. She has no current employment. She has no savings. She recently spent $30,000 in 3 months and is currently burning through $5,000 more. She has maxed out credit cards that I'm legally responsible for, and she's been living off friends and family since returning from Europe in October. If you rent to her, you will not receive rent after the first month, if that. I appreciate your honesty. I'm her mother, Mr. Chen, and I love her, but I won't lie for her anymore. I hung up before he could respond. 30 minutes later, Vanessa called screaming. You just ruined my chance at an apartment. How could you do that to me? I told the truth. You sabotaged me. That's what you did. You can't stand seeing me succeed, so you're actively destroying my life. Vanessa, you destroyed your own application by lying on it. I just refuse to back up the lie. Where am I supposed to live? That's an excellent question. I suggest you figure it out the same way everyone else does. Get a job. Any job. Save money. Find a room you can actually afford. I can't get a job. I've been applying everywhere and no one's calling back. I pulled up her resume on my laptop, the one I'd found on her email when I'd logged in from my computer months ago. Her password was still the same one she'd used in high school. Is this the resume you're sending out? The one that says you were senior marketing strategist at a company you worked at for 6 weeks 3 years ago? Silence. Or the one that lists a bachelor's degree you're 8 credits short of completing? Vanessa, they're calling your references. They're doing background checks. Every lie you tell is disqualifying you. So what? I'm supposed to tell them I'm a failure? You're supposed to tell them the truth and work your way up like everyone else does. She hung up on me. Good. Maybe anger would motivate her more than my sympathy ever had. That afternoon, I got a call from my sister Michelle. Maggie, Vanessa showed up at our house. Let me guess. She needs a place to stay. She's in bad shape. She said she's been sleeping in her car for 2 nights. She has $5,000 in her bank account as of 4 days ago. She's choosing to sleep in her car instead of getting a motel room because she thinks the suffering will make me feel guilty enough to take her back. Michelle was quiet for a moment. How do you know she has $5,000? Because I have access to her account. I've been watching her spend it on everything except rent or food. Yesterday, she bought a $200 jacket. Jesus, Maggie, I had no idea it was this bad. No one did, because Vanessa is very good at controlling how people see her. She's at your house right now playing the victim, and I guarantee she left out the part about the salon visit and the boutique shopping spree. She said you're refusing to help her out of spite. I'm refusing to enable her out of love. There's a difference. I softened my voice. Michelle, I know you want to help, but helping her right now means letting her fail. Completely. Until she understands that her choices have real consequences. She's family, so am I. And for 23 years, I've sacrificed everything for her. Now I'm asking my family to trust me when I say the kindest thing we can do for Vanessa is absolutely nothing. After we hung up, I sat in my office staring at the file I'd built. The documentation of every lie, every manipulation, every dollar spent, and rule broken. It was comprehensive enough to win any court case, but that wasn't the point anymore. The point was showing Vanessa that she couldn't manipulate her way out of this. That her tears and tantrums and victim narratives wouldn't work this time. That I was finally, after 2 decades of putting her first, choosing myself. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Hayes, this is Taylor Rodriguez, Vanessa's friend. I think we need to talk. We met at a coffee shop near my office. Taylor was 26, composed, clearly uncomfortable. She ordered a latte and sat across from me with the careful posture of someone delivering bad news. I care about Vanessa, she started. We've been friends since college, but I need you to know what's been happening. Tell me. She's been lying to everyone. About you, about the money, about everything. Taylor pulled out her phone. She told us you cut her off financially because she wouldn't follow your religion. She said you gave her an ultimatum about going to church or leaving the house. I'm not religious. I know that now, but she was very convincing. Taylor scrolled through messages. She's been crowdfunding. She has a GoFundMe saying she's escaping an abusive household and needs money for first and last month's rent. She's raised almost $4,000 in 2 weeks. My blood went cold. Show me. Taylor turned her phone around. There was Vanessa's face, artfully makeup-free and vulnerable, above a wall of text about escaping toxic control and rebuilding after family rejection. The donations ranged from $20 to $500. People I recognized, my neighbors, her old co-workers, friends from high school, all of them believing a narrative Vanessa had carefully constructed. There's more, Taylor said quietly. She's also been selling stuff. She posted in a local Facebook group that she's getting rid of belongings to start fresh, but the stuff she's selling. Mrs. Hayes, it's your stuff. What? Taylor pulled up screenshots. My grandmother's vintage brooch, my mother's jewelry box, a painting from my living room, all listed for sale with sob stories about needing emergency cash. She still has keys to your house, Taylor said. She's been going back when you're at work and taking things, small stuff she thinks you won't notice right away, then selling it online. I stared at those screenshots, feeling something calcify in my chest. The vintage brooch had been my grandmother's, not Dorothy, my other grandmother who died when I was 15. It was the only thing I had left of her. Vanessa was selling my memories to fund her delusions. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because it's gone too far. I've watched her manipulate people our whole friendship, but I always thought it was just drama, exaggeration. But this is theft. This is fraud. And someone needs to stop her before she does something that ruins her life permanently. Taylor met my eyes. She talks about you like you're a monster. But I did research. I found the articles about that case you worked on, the one where you helped bring down that embezzlement scheme at the law firm. You're good at finding evidence, so I thought you should know what evidence exists against her. After Taylor left, I sat in my car and made a decision. No more waiting, no more watching, no more hoping Vanessa would wake up and choose differently. I called the police non-emergency line and filed a theft report. I provided photos of the missing items, screenshots of Vanessa's sales posts, and documentation that she'd taken them from my home without permission. The officer who took my statement was sympathetic, but direct. Because she's your daughter and had access to the house, it's tricky. But with your documentation and her admission online that she's selling items for cash, we can definitely pursue this. Do you want to press charges? Did I? This was the moment. The point of no return. If I said yes, Vanessa would have a criminal record. She'd face theft charges. It would follow her forever. If I said no, she'd keep doing it. Keep lying, stealing, manipulating. Keep destroying her life and blaming everyone else. Yes, I said. I want to press charges. We'll send an officer to talk to her. Based on the evidence, we'll likely issue a citation. After that, it's up to the DA whether to prosecute. After I hung up, I called Janet. I need you to do something for me. File the small claims suit. For the credit card debt and the retroactive rent. Are you sure? I'm sure. And I need you to file a cease and desist against the GoFundMe. She's crowdfunding based on false claims of abuse. That's fraud. She could face serious charges. Good. Maybe serious charges will finally get through to her. My voice was steady. Calm. I felt calm. For the first time in months, I felt like I was doing exactly what needed to be done. Maggie, once we start this process, it's hard to stop. Court dates, legal proceedings, all of it becomes public record. I understand. Your daughter could end up with a criminal record. My daughter is already destroying her life. At least this way, she'll understand there are boundaries she can't cross, lines she can't uncross. I took a breath. File the paperwork, Janet. All of it. That night, I changed the locks on my house. I also installed a Ring doorbell camera and motion sensor lights. If Vanessa came back, I'd have video evidence. Then I sat down and did something I hadn't done in 23 years. I made a list of things I wanted. Not things Vanessa needed, not sacrifices I should make. Things I actually wanted for myself. A vacation. A real one. Not a weekend trip planned around Vanessa's schedule. New furniture for my living room that I chose. Not hand-me-downs I'd accepted because Vanessa needed tuition money. That promotion I turned down 12 years ago. Maybe it was too late for that exact position, but the company was still there. I could reach out, see what was available. A life where I wasn't constantly monitoring someone else's disasters. Where I came home to peace instead of chaos. Where my bank account was mine and my possessions stayed where I left them. I was 52 years old. I'd spent 23 of those years in service to someone who'd never appreciated it. Who'd taken every sacrifice and demanded more. Who'd called me controlling for expecting basic respect. I was done sacrificing, done enabling, done being the villain in Vanessa's narrative while she cast herself as the misunderstood victim. If she wanted to paint me as the bad guy, fine. I'd be the bad guy who protected herself, who demanded accountability, who refused to be stolen from and lied about. My phone rang. Vanessa. I sent it to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. 5 more times before she finally stopped. Then a text. The police just came to Taylor's. They said you're pressing charges. What is wrong with you? I typed back. You stole from me. You committed fraud with the GoFundMe. Actions have consequences. You're about to learn what those feel like. I'm your daughter, and you're also an adult who committed theft. Being my daughter doesn't exempt you from the law. I can't believe you'd do this to me. After everything I've been through. Everything you've put yourself through. There's a difference. She didn't respond after that. But an hour later, my mother called. Margaret, what have you done? What I should have done months ago. The police? Criminal charges? She's your child. She's 25, Mom. She's not a child. She's an adult who's been stealing from me and lying to everyone. I'm not protecting her from consequences anymore. You're going to ruin her life. No, Mom. I'm going to let her face the results of her own choices. There's a difference. My voice hardened. And if you give her money, if you let her move in, if you enable this in any way, you and I are going to have problems. My mother was silent for a long moment. You've changed. Yes, I have. I spent 2 decades being a doormat, and it didn't help anyone, especially not Vanessa. After I hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my living room, my quiet, clean, peaceful living room where no one's dirty dishes sat in the sink, where no one's drama filled every corner, where I could finally breathe. Tomorrow, the legal proceedings would start. Vanessa would receive the small claims filing, the cease and desist on her GoFundMe, the citation for theft, and she would have to face every single thing she'd done without me there to cushion the blow or absorb the damage or make excuses. For the first time in her life, Vanessa was going to experience real accountability, and I was going to watch without flinching. The small claims court summons arrived at Taylor's apartment on a Tuesday. I know because Taylor texted me a photo of Vanessa's face when she opened it. She went completely white, then locked herself in my bathroom for an hour. The amount listed was $15,217, $8,000 for the maxed out credit cards, $7,200 for 4 months of retroactive rent at market rate. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. Plenty of time for Vanessa to find a lawyer. Plenty of time for her to understand this wasn't a bluff. She called me 17 times that day. I answered none of them. Finally, a voicemail. Mom, please, we can work this out. You don't have to take me to court. I'll pay you back, I promise. Just drop the charges and we can figure out a payment plan. I texted back, you've had 4 months to figure out a payment plan. You chose to spend money on boutiques and salons instead. See you in court. The next morning, she showed up at my workplace. I was at my desk when the receptionist called. Margaret, there's a Vanessa Hayes here to see you. She says she's your daughter. Tell her I'm unavailable. She's quite upset. She's crying in the lobby. She can cry somewhere else. I'm unavailable. 10 minutes later, my supervisor came to my desk. Barbara was 60, no nonsense, and had never particularly liked workplace drama. Margaret, your daughter is causing a scene in our lobby. Can you please handle it? I found Vanessa sitting on the floor by the elevators, mascara streaming down her face, phone out recording herself. When she saw me, her voice got louder. Mom, please, I just need to talk to you. Why won't you talk to me? She was performing, creating content for social media, playing the desperate daughter rejected by her cruel mother for an audience that didn't know the truth. I walked past her to the elevators without a word. She scrambled up, following me. You're really going to sue me? Your own daughter? For what? Asking you to wash some dishes? I turned to face her, my voice low and cold. You're trespassing in my workplace. You're creating a disturbance. You have 5 seconds to leave before I call security. I can't believe you're treating me like this. After everything, 3 seconds. You're supposed to love me unconditionally. 1 second. I pulled out my phone and dialed security. She left before they arrived, but not before yelling loud enough for the entire lobby to hear. You're a terrible mother. This is abuse. Everyone should know what you're really like. When I got back to my desk, Barbara was waiting. Want to tell me what that was about? I explained. Everything. The inheritance, the spending, the theft, the GoFundMe fraud. I showed her the documentation I'd been building. The court filing, the police report. Barbara listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. How long have you been dealing with this? 4 months since she came back from Europe. But honestly, her whole life. I just kept making excuses for it. And now you're done making excuses. Now I'm done being her safety net while she sets herself on fire. Barbara was quiet for a moment. You know that promotion you turned down 12 years ago? The one that required relocation to the Boston office? I remember. We have an opening. Same level position. Boston office is expanding. The pay is 30% higher than what you're making now. Relocation assistance included. She met my eyes. I wasn't supposed to tell you because HR handles these things. But Margaret, you've been here 21 years. You're overqualified for your current position. You stayed because of family obligations. If those obligations have changed, maybe it's time to reconsider. When would it start? 3 months. Right after the new year. 3 months. After the court date. After Vanessa faced consequences. After I'd made it clear that her drama no longer controlled my life. I'm interested, I said. Good. I'll have HR reach out. Barbara stood to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I raised 3 kids. 2 of them are functional adults. One of them sounds a lot like your Vanessa. The hardest thing I ever did was stop rescuing him. But it was also the best thing. For both of us. After she left, I sat at my desk staring at nothing. Boston. A new city, a new position, 300 miles between me and Vanessa's chaos. That night, I drafted a letter to Vanessa, not emotional, clinical, the kind of communication a lawyer would write to a client. Vanessa, I am moving forward with the court proceedings. However, I want to be clear about what's at stake and give you one final opportunity to resolve this outside of court. If you, 1, immediately pay back the $8,000 in credit card debt you created. 2, pay $7,200 for the 4 months you lived in my house rent-free. 3, return or compensate me for every item you stole and sold. 4, issue a public statement retracting your false abuse claims and shut down your fraudulent GoFundMe. And 5, commit to legitimate employment and regular therapy sessions with a licensed counselor, then I will drop the court case. You have 14 days to respond. This offer expires on December 15th at 5 p.m. After that, I will see you in court. Margaret Hayes. I printed it, had it notarized, and sent it via certified mail. Legal, binding, and impossible to claim she never received. Then I called Janet. If she meets those conditions, do I have to drop the case? If you put it in writing that you will, yes. But Margaret, there's no way she can meet those conditions. Where would she get $15,000 in 2 weeks? Exactly. This letter isn't about giving her a way out. It's about proving I offered one. When we get to court and she plays the victim, I can show the judge that I gave her every opportunity to make this right. You're thinking like a lawyer. I was trained by lawyers for 23 years. I learned something. The letter arrived on Thursday. I tracked it online. Vanessa signed for it Friday morning at Taylor's apartment. Then nothing. No call, no text, no tearful appearance at my door. 3 days later, my mother called. Vanessa came to see me. She showed me your letter. And? She wants me to loan her the $15,000. Of course she does. Margaret, I don't have that kind of money. My retirement savings aren't. Mom, I'm not asking you to give it to her. I'm warning you not to. If you drain your savings to bail her out, she'll never learn. And when she needs to be bailed out again in 6 months, you'll have nothing left. She's talking about declaring bankruptcy. She says the court case will ruin her credit anyway, so she might as well. Then let her. Bankruptcy has consequences too. She'll learn to live within her means or she won't. Either way, it's not my problem to solve. After we hung up, I realized something had shifted. For 23 years, Vanessa's problems had been my problems. Her failures had been my failures. Her chaos had been my responsibility to manage. Now, sitting in my quiet house with the promotion paperwork from Boston on my kitchen table, I felt the weight of that responsibility lift. She could declare bankruptcy. She could rage and cry and manipulate. She could paint me as the villain on every social media platform that existed. And I would be fine. Better than fine. I would be free. The deadline came and went. No payment, no apology, no attempt to meet even one of the 5 conditions. On December 16th, I received a text from Vanessa. I can't believe you're really doing this. You're choosing money over your own daughter. I replied, I'm choosing accountability over enabling. See you in court. Then I blocked her number, blocked her on every platform, removed her access to my life completely. 2 days later, a process server found her at Taylor's apartment and delivered additional paperwork. The cease and desist on the GoFundMe had been escalated. Because she'd raised money based on false claims, the platform had frozen her account and flagged it for investigation. Every donor was being notified. The $4,000 she'd raised was being refunded. I know this because 3 donors called me directly, neighbors who'd given money thinking they were helping a young woman escape abuse. They'd received emails from GoFundMe explaining the fraud investigation and saw my name listed as the complainant. Mrs. Hayes, we had no idea. Vanessa seemed so genuine. She's very good at seeming genuine. I'm sorry you were lied to. The calls kept coming. People Vanessa had manipulated who now understood they'd been part of her con. Each conversation felt like vindication. Proof that I wasn't crazy or cruel. Proof that Vanessa's narrative had always been built on lies. Christmas came and went. I spent it at my mother's assisted living facility, just the two of us. We didn't talk about Vanessa. We talked about Boston, about the promotion, about my plans for my new apartment. Are you happy? Mom asked. I'm getting there. She's still your daughter, and I'm still her mother, but being her mother doesn't mean destroying myself to save her from herself. Mom touched my hand. Dorothy would be proud of you. She always said you were too soft on Vanessa, that you needed to make her face consequences. I wish I'd listened sooner. We all wish that, but you're listening now. That's what matters. The court date arrived on a cold morning in early January. I wore my best suit, carried my file of documentation, and walked into that courtroom feeling more prepared than I'd ever felt in my life. Vanessa showed up late, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, no lawyer. She looked smaller somehow, scared. When her eyes met mine across the courtroom, I saw something I'd never seen before. Recognition. She understood, finally, that this was real. The judge called our case. We stood before the bench. The judge looked at the filing, at Vanessa's lack of legal representation, then at me. Mrs. Hayes, you're suing your daughter for $15,000. That's a significant amount. Walk me through why. I did. Calmly, methodically, with documentation for every claim. The credit cards, the rent, the theft, the fraud. I showed bank statements, text messages, photos of the stolen items listed for sale. I showed the GoFundMe with its false abuse claims. I showed everything. The judge turned to Vanessa. Do you have a response to these allegations? Vanessa's voice shook. She's my mom. She's supposed to help me, not sue me. That's not a legal defense, Ms. Hayes. Did you or did you not accumulate $8,000 in debt on credit cards your mother co-signed for? Yes, but did you or did you not live in her house for 4 months without paying rent despite having received a significant inheritance? I didn't think she'd charge me rent. She's my mother. Did you or did you not take items from her house and sell them online? Vanessa's eyes filled with tears. I needed the money. So that's a yes. The judge looked at the documentation again. Ms. Hayes, I'm ruling in favor of the plaintiff. You owe Margaret Hayes $15,217. Payment plan options can be discussed with the court clerk. Additionally, I'm ordering you to return all items taken from the plaintiff's home or provide monetary compensation for their value. Do you understand? Vanessa was crying now, real tears that didn't seem performed. I don't have $15,000. Then I suggest you get a job and start making payments. Garnished wages if necessary. The judge looked at me. Mrs. Hayes, I'm also granting you a restraining order based on the evidence of harassment at your workplace. Ms. Hayes is not to contact you directly or come within 300 feet of your home or place of employment. Thank you, Your Honor. Outside the courtroom, Vanessa tried to approach me. A bailiff stopped her, pointing to the restraining order paperwork. She stood 20 feet away, mascara running, looking lost. Mom, please, can we just talk? I looked at my daughter, this person I'd created and raised and sacrificed everything for. This stranger who'd taken every gift I'd given and demanded more. This woman who needed to fall completely before she could ever stand on her own. The court will contact you about payment arrangements, I said. That's all the talking we need to do. Then I walked away. Got in my car, drove home to my quiet house where no one's chaos lived except my own, and I didn't look back. The wage garnishment started 3 weeks after the court date. 25% of Vanessa's income, once she got income, would go directly to paying off the debt. The problem was, she didn't have income. She'd been fired from the part-time barista job she'd finally gotten after showing up late 6 times in 2 weeks. I know this because the court clerk called me. Mrs. Hayes, the defendant has no wages to garnish. She's filed paperwork claiming financial hardship. What does that mean for the judgment? It stands, but collection becomes more difficult. She could request a payment plan based on future employment, but if she continues to have no income, enforcement options are limited. I understand. What I didn't say was that I didn't care about collecting the full amount. The money had never been the point. The judgment was the point. The public record that said Vanessa Hayes owes her mother $15,000 because of her own choices was the point. Every job application she filled out, every rental application, every background check for the rest of her life would show this judgment. It would follow her like a shadow. A permanent reminder that actions have consequences. 2 days after that call, I got a message from Taylor. Mrs. Hayes, I need to tell you something. Vanessa's been talking about leaving the state. She thinks if she moves somewhere else, the judgment won't follow her. It will. Court judgments are enforceable across state lines. I tried to tell her that. She won't listen. She's convinced she can just start over somewhere and you won't be able to find her. Taylor paused. She's also been talking about you. Saying things. Planning things. My blood went cold. What kind of things? She's angry. Really angry. She keeps saying you ruined her life and you need to pay for it. Mrs. Hayes, I think you should take the restraining order seriously. I think she might try something. After we hung up, I called Janet. Can we strengthen the restraining order? Based on what? She hasn't violated it yet. She's making threats. Talking about making me pay. Has she threatened you directly? In writing? On a recording? No, it's secondhand through her friend. Then there's nothing to strengthen. But Margaret, document everything. If she does contact you, if she does show up somewhere she shouldn't, call the police immediately. I installed more cameras. One facing my driveway, one at the back door, one in my office at work covering the entrance. If Vanessa came near me, I'd have evidence. Then I did something I'd been putting off. I called a therapist. Her name was Dr. Patricia Chen, and she specialized in family dysfunction and setting boundaries with adult children. I'd found her through a support group website for parents dealing with estranged children. Our first session was 2 days before I was scheduled to leave for Boston to apartment hunt. I walked into her office expecting judgment, expecting to be told I'd been too harsh, that I should give Vanessa another chance. Instead, Dr. Chen listened to the entire story without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. You did everything right. I sued my own daughter. You enforced consequences for an adult who was stealing from you, lying about you, and committing fraud. That's not cruelty. That's self-preservation. Then why do I feel guilty? Because you spent 23 years being conditioned to put her needs above your own. That conditioning doesn't disappear just because you make a healthy choice. The guilt is a habit, not a truth. She looked at me over her reading glasses. Margaret, has Vanessa ever taken responsibility for anything? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No, there's always an excuse. Always someone else to blame. And when you tried to hold her accountable before this, what happened? She'd cry or rage until I backed down, so you taught her that tantrums work. That if she makes you feel bad enough, you'll absorb the consequences for her. Dr. Chen wrote something in her notes. You didn't break your daughter. You stopped breaking yourself for her. There's a profound difference. That night, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine and really looked at my life. The house was quiet, clean, mine. The job in Boston started in 6 weeks. I'd found an apartment in a neighborhood I loved, near a park where I could walk in the mornings. I'd started planning the life I wanted instead of the life Vanessa's needs had dictated. For the first time in decades, I felt light. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Hayes? A woman's voice I didn't recognize. This is Officer Linda Martinez from the Boston Police Department. We received a report that you might be receiving harassing communications from your daughter. How did you? Your local police department flagged your case when they saw you'd filed a change of address to Boston. They wanted to make sure our department was aware of the restraining order. I felt something loosen in my chest. The system was working. They were paying attention. Thank you, Officer Martinez. I appreciate that. We take these cases seriously, Mrs. Hayes. If your daughter contacts you or shows up in Boston, call us immediately. We'll enforce the restraining order. After we hung up, I realized Vanessa had no idea I was moving. She thought I'd be here, in this house, forever. Available to blame, to rage at, to eventually wear down. She didn't know I was disappearing, starting over, building a life she couldn't touch. The week before my move, my mother called. Vanessa came to see me today. How is she? Not good. She's living in her car. She lost the barista job. She's talking about going to California, saying she can start fresh there. Mom's voice cracked. Margaret, she looks terrible. She's lost weight. She's not taking care of herself. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Because you don't sound sorry. You sound relieved. I am relieved. Not that she's suffering, but that it's not my problem to fix anymore. That I'm not responsible for managing her self-destruction. She's your daughter. And I'm her mother. But being her mother doesn't mean setting myself on fire to keep her warm. She made choices. She's living with the results. That's how life works for everyone. When did you become so cold? I'm not cold, Mom. I'm boundaried. There's a difference. I took a breath. I love Vanessa. I always will. But loving someone doesn't mean letting them destroy you. And for 23 years, that's exactly what I let her do. After we hung up, I felt nothing. No guilt, no second guessing, no urge to drive over to wherever Vanessa was parked and offer rescue. Just peace. Clear, clean peace. Moving day came on a Saturday in February. The movers loaded my furniture while I did a final walkthrough of the house. Every room empty now. Every trace of Vanessa's presence gone. I'd repainted her bedroom, patched the holes in the walls where she'd hung posters, replaced the carpet she'd ruined with spilled wine. It looked like a blank slate, ready for whatever came next. As I locked the front door for the last time, a car pulled up, Taylor's car. Vanessa got out of the passenger seat, and I saw what my mother had meant. She looked gaunt, unwashed, desperate. Mom, wait, please. I stood by my car, keys in hand. You're violating the restraining order. I know. I don't care. I need to say something. She walked closer, stopping at the edge of the property line, smart enough not to violate the 300-foot rule. I'm sorry. I know you don't believe me, but I'm sorry. For all of it. The money, the stealing, the lies, everything. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, searching for sincerity beneath the desperation. What do you want, Vanessa? I want you to give me another chance. I want to prove I can change. You've had 1,000 chances. You wasted every single one. This time is different. I hit rock bottom. I understand now. Do you? Do you understand that you stole from me? That you lied about me to strangers for money? That you sold my grandmother's jewelry for drug money? I saw her flinch at that last part. Oh yes, I know about that too. Taylor told me about the cocaine habit you picked up in Europe. The real reason the 30,000 disappeared so fast. Vanessa's face crumpled. How do you know everything? Because I pay attention. Because while you were busy underestimating me, I was documenting everything. Every lie, every theft, every manipulation. I opened my car door. I'm moving to Boston, today. I'm starting over in a city where your drama can't reach me. The house is sold. My number is changing. This is the last time we'll see each other unless you find a way to pay off that $15,000 judgment. You can't just abandon me. I'm not abandoning you. I'm freeing both of us. You from the mother you blame for all your problems, and me from the daughter who refuses to take responsibility for any of them. I'll change. I promise I'll really change this time. Then do it. Not for me. For yourself. Get clean. Get a job. Build a real life instead of a performed one. But do it far away from me. I got in my car, started the engine. Vanessa stood in the driveway, tears streaming down her face, looking younger and more lost than I'd ever seen her. But I didn't stop. I didn't roll down the window. I didn't offer one more chance or one more word of advice or one more rescue. I just drove away. In my rearview mirror, I watched her shrink to nothing. Watched Taylor wrap an arm around her shoulders and guide her back to the car. Watched the house I'd lived in for 23 years disappear around a corner. And I felt nothing but relief. The drive to Boston took 7 hours. I arrived at my new apartment at sunset, the city lights beginning to flicker on across the skyline. The movers had already unloaded everything. My furniture sat in boxes and clusters, ready to be arranged into a new life. I stood in the middle of my empty living room and breathed. No dishes in the sink that weren't mine. No drama waiting to explode. No daughter whose problems were my problems. Just space. Quiet. Possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from Janet. How's Boston? Perfect. I typed back. Absolutely perfect. That night I unpacked until midnight. Put books on shelves. Hung pictures on walls. Arranged my bedroom exactly how I wanted it. No one to consult. No one to accommodate. No one to please but myself. When I finally fell into bed, exhausted and satisfied, I slept better than I had in years. No nightmares about Vanessa. No anxiety about what crisis tomorrow would bring. Just deep, dreamless sleep in a city 300 miles away from everything I'd been running from. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through windows I'd chosen. Made coffee in a kitchen that was entirely mine. Walked through a neighborhood where no one knew my history or my failures or my complicated relationship with my daughter. I was 52 years old, and I was finally free. 3 months into my Boston life, I got a letter. Not at my apartment. I'd been careful about keeping that address private. It came to my office. Forwarded through some investigation Vanessa must have done to find out where I worked. The handwriting on the envelope was different, neater, more controlled than Vanessa's usual scrawl. Inside was a single page. Mom, I'm writing this from a residential treatment facility in Arizona. I've been here for 6 weeks. Court-ordered, not voluntary, because I got arrested for shoplifting in California. When the judge saw my record, saw the judgment from Massachusetts, he gave me a choice, treatment or jail. I chose treatment. I'm not writing to ask for money or forgiveness. I'm writing because my therapist says I need to take accountability without expecting anything in return. So here it is. I destroyed your trust. I stole from you. I lied about you to anyone who would listen. I spent Grandma Dorothy's money like it was Monopoly cash instead of 40 years of her sacrifices. I treated you like an ATM machine instead of a person who'd given up everything for me. You were right to sue me. You were right to get the restraining order. You were right to leave. I'm not fixed. I'm not cured. But I'm starting to understand the difference between being a victim of my circumstances and being responsible for my choices. I don't know if I'll ever be someone you're proud of, but I'm trying to become someone I'm not ashamed to be. Vanessa, I read it 3 times, looking for manipulation, for the angle, for the part where she asked for something. But it wasn't there. It was just acknowledgement. Raw and painful and real. I didn't respond. Not because I was cruel, but because responding would open a door I'd worked hard to close. Instead, I filed the letter away and went back to my life. The life I'd built was better than anything I'd imagined. The job challenged me in ways my old position never had. I'd made friends, real friends, not people connected to Vanessa or obligated by family ties. I'd started dating someone, a professor from the university where my company contracted. His name was Robert, and he had grown children who were functional adults. He understood boundaries. He understood that sometimes love means letting people face their own consequences. 6 months after the letter, Janet called. Maggie, the court just notified me that Vanessa's been making payments. $50 a month from prison wages. She's working in the facility's kitchen. She's still in treatment? Graduated from residential to a sober living house. She's been clean for 8 months. The payments are part of her program. $50 a month. It would take her 25 years to pay off $15,000 at that rate. But she was paying. Actually paying. Do you want to reach out? Janet asked. No. If she's really changing, she needs to do it without me watching. Without the possibility of me rescuing her if she fails. That's very healthy of you. I had a good therapist. I never did reach out, but I didn't block the payments either. Each month, $50 appeared. Then after a year, it increased to $100. Then $200. According to the court records Janet sent me, Vanessa had gotten a full-time job, manager at a coffee shop in Phoenix. She'd completed 18 months of sobriety. She was rebuilding. And she was doing it without me. My mother passed away quietly in her sleep 2 years after I moved to Boston. She was 80 years old and had lived a full life. At the funeral, I saw Vanessa for the first time since that day in the driveway. She looked different. Older, obviously, but also more solid somehow. Less performative. She wore a simple black dress, no dramatic makeup, her hair pulled back neatly. She sat in the back of the church and didn't approach me. After the service, as people were leaving, she waited by the door. When I walked past, she said quietly, "I'm sorry about Grandma Ruth. She was always kind to me. Thank you for coming. I'm 2 years sober now. I have a job, an apartment. I'm still making payments on the judgment. I know, I get the records." She nodded, twisting her hands together. "I don't expect you to forgive me, or trust me, or let me back into your life. I just wanted you to know I'm trying." I looked at this woman who was my daughter, seeing her clearly for the first time in maybe forever. She wasn't the child I'd raised. She wasn't the entitled disaster who'd stolen from me. She was somewhere in between, still figuring it out, still struggling, but fighting for it now instead of demanding everyone else fight for her. "Keep trying," I said. "Not for me, for yourself." "I am." We stood there for a moment, 3 feet and 2 years of silence between us. Then I walked to my car where Robert was waiting. We drove back to Boston together, talking about Mom's life, her final wishes, the cousins I'd reconnected with. I didn't think about Vanessa for the rest of the day. And when I did think about her, later that night as I was falling asleep, it was with something resembling peace. She was out there, making better choices or worse ones, but they were hers to make. Her consequences to face, her life to build or destroy. And mine was finally, completely, my own. Now at 55, I'm the regional director for my company. I live in a beautiful apartment with a view of the harbor. Robert and I are talking about buying a house together. I take real vacations, just got back from 2 weeks in Scotland. I have money in savings, a retirement plan that's actually funded, and furniture I bought new instead of accepting hand-me-downs. I think about Vanessa sometimes. Wonder if she's still sober, still paying the judgment, still working on becoming someone she's not ashamed to be. According to the last court record, she's paid off $6,000 of the $15,000. Only $9,000 to go. At her current payment rate, she'll be done in 4 years. I'll be 59 then. Maybe by then, enough time will have passed. Maybe by then, she'll be someone I could have coffee with without wondering when the manipulation will start, or what she'll want from me. Or maybe not. Maybe the distance between us now is permanent. Maybe the cost of my peace was the relationship with my daughter. I've made my peace with that possibility, because the alternative was sacrificing myself on the altar of her dysfunction. It was enabling her to destroy us both. It was spending the rest of my life as a supporting character in her tragedy, instead of the protagonist of my own story. I chose myself. Finally, after 52 years, I chose myself. And I don't regret it for a single second. The last payment notification came yesterday. $200, same as always. Consistent, reliable, real. And sitting here in my office with the Boston skyline outside my window, I realized something. I'd won. Not because Vanessa was paying me back. Not because she might finally be changing, but because I'd stopped letting her choices dictate my life. She'd taken my grandmother's inheritance and blown it on illusions. She'd stolen from me, lied about me, tried to destroy the life I'd built. And I'd responded by building something better. Something she couldn't touch. Something that was entirely, completely mine. My mother had asked me if I was happy. That last Christmas before she died. I'd said I was getting there. Now, 3 years later, I could answer definitively, yes, I'm happy. Not despite having to walk away from my daughter, but because I finally understood that saving her would have meant destroying myself, and I'd done enough destroying for both of us. Some people would say I was too harsh, that blood is thicker than water, that you never give up on family, that a mother's love should be unconditional. Those people never had to watch their child systematically dismantle everything they'd built, never had to choose between enabling someone's self-destruction and saving themselves. I made my choice. I'd make it again. And somewhere in Phoenix, Arizona, Vanessa was making her choices too. Different ones now, hopefully better ones, but hers to make, and hers to live with, just like I was living with mine. In peace, in freedom, and in the life I'd finally claimed for myself. The sun set over Boston Harbor, painting my office in shades of gold and amber. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Dinner at 7? That new Italian place? I smiled and typed back. Perfect, because that's what my life was now. Not perfect in the fairy tale sense, but perfect in the way that mattered. Mine, built on choices I'd made for myself instead of sacrifices I'd made for someone who'd never appreciate them. Vanessa had bet that I'd always be there to catch her when she fell. That maternal love would override common sense. That guilt would make me cave. That eventually I'd crack and rescue her from her own consequences. She'd lost that bet. And in losing it, maybe, just maybe, she'd found something more valuable than my enabling ever gave her, the chance to save herself. As for me, I'd already won. The moment I walked away, changed my number, moved to a new city, and built a life she couldn't touch, I'd won, and I'd never looked back.